Have you ever been in a conversation where someone tells you what you really think? You know, someone who says they can see right past your own words and into the hidden corners of your mind? Well, in this explainer, we're taking a close look at the experts who claim they can do just that, the modern-day mind readers. What happens when someone else claims to know your own mind better than you do? I mean, really think about that. An expert, maybe a psychologist or a social critic, looks at you and says, the reason you believe that isn't what you think it is, it's actually because of some hidden bias you don't even know you have. The big question the source material for this explainer wants us to ask is, how much should we trust that kind of claim?
And that brings us to this big idea we're going to unpack today, psychological elitism. It's basically the notion that there's a special group of experts out there who have a secret key to your subconscious. They believe they can see the real gears turning deep inside your head, while the reasons you give for your own actions, well, to them, that's just fluff.
So where does an idea this powerful even come from? Before we can really get into the debate, we've got to understand the theory that these experts are working with. It's a theory that says the you that you think is in charge might just be a passenger.
The idea goes something like this. Your conscious mind is basically a press secretary for your brain. It doesn't actually make the big decisions. Instead, the decisions are made by these deep, unconscious forces. And then, the conscious mind jumps in to cook up a good-sounding story after the fact. So, the reasons you tell people, and yourself, are just post hoc rationalizations. They're stories we invent to feel like we make sense. So, according to this theory, what's this unconscious story made of? Well, it's got a few key ingredients. First, you've got hidden motives, stuff like wanting to protect our ego or help out our own social group. Then there are these automatic shortcuts our brain uses, like stereotypes, to make quick judgments. And the final piece? The false narrative. That's the clean, logical story our conscious mind tells us to make it all seem like we were in control the whole time.
It's a pretty compelling story, isn't it? This idea of a secret world running the show inside our own heads. But hold on a sec. The source material for this explainer argues that maybe we should hit the brakes and ask some really tough questions. It's time to put this whole idea under the microscope.
So the argument we're going to follow here lays out 5 major reasons to be skeptical of this whole framework. Think of these as the weak points, the cracks in the foundation of psychological elitism. Let's walk through them one by one.
Okay, so the first couple of problems are all about the fuzzy evidence. For pretty much any action you take, an expert can come up with a couple of different unconscious explanations. Was your decision driven by a secret desire to feel superior? Or was it just a simple mental shortcut? The source makes a strong point. It is incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible, to design an experiment that proves it's one and not the other. The tools they use to try and separate conscious from unconscious reasons are just, well, they're not very sharp.
The third issue is a little more subtle, but it's a big one. It's what happens when an expert decides you're acting against your own best interests. But wait, who gets to decide what your best interests are? This quote here from psychologist John Jost really captures the mindset. It suggests that your own opinions about what you want shouldn't be taken at face value. An expert might just substitute their own values for yours and then call your perspective false consciousness.
And this brings us to a huge crack in the whole theory. The experts don't even agree with each other. Take the famous implicit association test, the IAT. It's often talked about as if it's a simple, proven test for unconscious bias. But if you dig into the research, the top experts who actually study the test are in a massive debate about what it really measures. So if they can't agree on what their own tools are doing, why should we just accept their conclusions? And the fifth and final reason for doubt? Something the source calls the science bubble. You know, we like to think of science as this perfect, self-correcting machine. But the reality is, the peer review system isn't perfect. It has blind spots. And that means that sometimes shaky ideas about the unconscious can get a stamp of scientific approval and leak out into the public, shaping how we all think long before the evidence is actually solid. Okay, so after laying out all those challenges, you might be thinking, what now? Well, the source doesn't just tear the idea down and leave it there. It actually proposes a totally new way to approach this. A different starting point for thinking about why people do what they do.
First, let's look at the old model, the one that comes from psychological elitism. It's an uneven playing field. You've got the expert's explanation on one side, and it's treated as the superior, privileged view. And on the other side, there's your explanation for your own actions, which just gets waved away as a rationalization. It's not a fair fight from the get-go.
So, what's the alternative? It's a simple but radical idea called epistemic parity. Parity just means equality. The idea is to put both explanations on a level playing field right from the start. Your own story about why you believe something and the expert's theory about your unconscious mind should both be treated as hypotheses. Neither one gets a free pass. Both need to be questioned, and both need to be checked for evidence and potential biases.
Now, I know this might all seem a little abstract, like a debate for a college philosophy class, but trust me, this is way more than just an academic squabble. How we answer these questions has a massive impact on the real world, on our actual lives.
Just think about it for a second. This whole debate changes how we talk about social justice, right? It affects how we see political opponents. Are they making rational choices, or are they just driven by hidden biases? It changes how we assign blame for problems in society. And, maybe most importantly, it changes how you think about your own mind, and whether you can even trust yourself.
And that leads us to the real kicker. Here it is. If these theories about powerful subconscious forces are true, well, then they have to be true for everybody. If unconscious biases can twist the thinking of a regular person, then those exact same forces can twist the thinking of the expert who's doing the analyzing. Nobody gets a free pass.
And so, we're left with a question. It's an old one, usually asked about political power, but it fits perfectly here. If everyone, the expert and the everyday person alike, is vulnerable to having their judgment distorted by these hidden forces, then who guards the guardians?